Hello everyone and welcome to SwitchUp. My name is Glenn and today I am bringing you a review of Fraught, a new eShop release. I would like to thank the developers for this review copy and remind you all to stay active in our comments section for a chance to win a free digital game each month. With that said, let's dive into the review. Fraught is a deck building and management game. You must use the cards you are dealt to try and advance and reach a certain objective. You are given 10 cards at the start of a game, and these can be made up of basic resource cards such as food, wood and survivors, to idea cards such as weapons and fire, to useless cards that you must try to get rid of such as fatigue and terror. You advance forward by reaching the criteria on the region card, which is situated in the middle of the screen. You will need to submit a certain amount of your basic material cards in order to do this. If you are able to fulfill this, you may travel forward. If not, you must end your turn and the cards will be redealt. To win, you must reach the Refuge point, and this is achieved by advancing a certain number of moves forward. This is made more difficult by the frost counter. The number displayed here is how many turns will pass before the frost is upon you and your tribe are claimed by the elements. Every time you fulfill the region card requirement, you travel forward and the frost counter will tick up by 1, giving you another turn in which to reach the refuge. But every time you end your turn without advancing, the counter ticks down by 1. This adds a level of tension that can become quite palpable when you must end your turn a few turns in a row due to lacking the necessary card, only to see that counter drop closer towards 0. The cards at the top of the screen are called idea cards, and you can trade your resource cards for these in order to obtain weapons or other items. For example, trading one of your survivors in for a cannibalism card will see you receive food cards once you activate it, and only with clever use of the idea cards will you have any chance of success with Fraught. You can also send your survivors to scavenge for resources, which may net you a card that will serve you well later on, but could alternatively lead to the death of that survivor instead. There is always this element of risk to the game, but luck, or more specifically a lack of it, can also derail your best laid plans. In this example, I have no wood resource cards left. None of the idea cards at the top will net me wood cards should I activate them, and every time I send a survivor to scavenge, they find food. I am left with no choice but to continually forfeit my go until the frost counter runs out. The game has a tutorial mode which shows you the basics as well as instructions in the menu. Between these two things you will start to get a taste for how to play, although there will be a fair bit of trial and error to begin with too. My first hour of the game was a very confusing one, but I am glad that I persevered. The game has a pre-order sale of £9.35 or $10.39, and the game will go up shortly after release. For that price there are a few game modes on offer. There is the aforementioned tutorial, a classic mode and a scenario mode. Classic mode offers what's called custom mode, which allows you to change the conditions for victory and also change the difficulty setting. This mode is a very good place to begin with, as the game is pretty difficult and you can learn the ropes here and increase the challenge as you need to. You can also unlock an endless mode which will track how many days you stayed alive, and you can attempt to beat this every time you play. Scenario mode starts off unavailable to you, but new scenarios are added as you make progress in the classic mode. This is a genre that has remained largely untouched so far on the Switch, so you are getting something pretty unique for your money. It can be a frustrating experience, but the custom mode can help with this, and I found myself wanting just one more game after turning the Switch off pretty much every time. Gameplay gets 16 out of 20 and value gets 14 out of 20. The game presents itself using a hand-drawn style, the crude lines being a good metaphor for the harsh environments that the game depicts. Colours used are muted as you would expect given the source material, with pale blue being the most prominent. Snow blows nonchalantly across the screen as you play, and each card has its own symbol to represent it. Given what the game is about, the developers have obviously taken a less is more approach to the graphics, and in all honesty, it's probably a good decision overall. The graphics receive 14 out of 20. In a similar way to the graphics, the sound is also very minimalistic. In fact, I had to deliberately turn the game back on whilst writing this review and make a conscious effort to check if music plays during the game at all, as I could only remember hearing it during the title screen. It does play, but it is very unintrusive. It goes from wind howling to a fairly haunting score to using ambient sounds. The effectiveness of this does range. The ambient sounds do not really suit and just seem to drown out what is otherwise a quite decent score. Another negative about the sound is the very obvious and jarring music loop. This always drops the quality of a game's soundtrack and seems like quite an easy fix, so it's a shame to find this happens here. Music and sound get 13 out of 20. The controls in Frost are nice and simple. You click to select your cards with the A button and move them with the left stick or the D-pad. Pressing Y on an idea card shows you more information, and the shoulder buttons are used to travel or to end your turn. You can also rest with a press of the ZL button, which will clear any fatigue cards that you have at the expense of the Frost counter ticking down by 1. Frost also supports touchscreen controls, which is perfect for this type of game. The biggest issue I have with the controls is that you cannot select multiple cards at once and drop them all into the region card in one go. This would have just streamlined the game a little, although it is not a huge problem. It would have just been a little quality of life tweak that would have improved things slightly. Controls receive 16 out of 20. To conclude, the game of Frost is from a genre that at this moment is quite unique on the Switch, and it can be equally rewarding and frustrating. There is certainly a learning curve here, and some may shy away from it, but those that have perseverance will find themselves becoming more strategic in their use of cards and being rewarded with further progress into the game as a result of this. I will openly admit that about 30 minutes in, I was ready to write Frost off, but that would have been down to my impatience rather than anything wrong with the game. That's not to say that the game doesn't have flaws, because it certainly does, and it is absolutely not for everyone. The difficulty, even on the default easy setting, is still very high, and there is an over-reliance on luck at times. But Frost does have a certain quality that saw me return to it a fair few times, and it receives a SwitchUp score of 73%. Thank you very much for watching. Please leave a like if you like what you've just watched, and if you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing for all things Switch all the time here at SwitchUp, and as always, happy gaming.